I guess now is as good a time as any to announce that I'll be running the Sydney Marathon in less than 2 weeks.
I'm going to run the Gold Coast Marathon, and I'm going to try and run a sub 3 hour marathon.
Okay, the race is finally here. 16 weeks worth of prep, ready for the Gold Coast Marathon, my second ever marathon, and it's race week. I've spoken about my athletic journey before, and it's been crazy. I've done lots of things, had lots of eras, but my running journey really only started around 12 months ago, maybe even less. Before that, I was competing competitively as a semi-professional CrossFit athlete, and in May last year I just finished the Torium Pro and was ready to commit to another 12 months of CrossFit. At that time though, life was getting a little bit crazy. I've been putting off a shoulder surgery, Maddie and I were getting married this year, and also CrossFit was just like a lot of sacrifice for my job, for my relationship, for my friends. I was training 4 to 6 hours a day, and it just was taking a lot of time and effort. And so Maddie and I sat down and just spoke about, is the light at the end of the tunnel worth kind of pursuing? What do we get out of it if we do make the CrossFit Games, and is it worth everything that goes into it? Anyway, we kind of spoke about it and said, let's just have the year off, let's prioritize the wedding, let's get the shoulder surgery we've been putting off. And that kind of sparked this, okay, well, if I'm gonna do something different, let's actually do something different. And I'd always been intrigued in running marathons and seeing this kind of trend in the hybrid space that people like Nick Bare were lifting and running. And I thought, you know what, I kind of want to try the same thing. So I ran my first ever marathon last year, the Sydney Marathon, on 2 weeks' notice. My friend Slater was running, someone was selling a ticket, and so the ticket was presented to me 2 weeks before we were actually in Bali, and I said, yep, let's do it. And so flew home from Bali, and then that next week I ran a marathon, 42 kilometers on very little preparation, if any preparation, and it took us 4 hours and 5 minutes. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Just the time length of being on your feet for 4 hours and 5 minutes was hard. But I knew that I had more in the tank and I wanted to do a full prep. So this is the first time I've ever done a prep for a marathon. It's been 16 weeks, 18 almost. I kind of started early and was base building, but 18 weeks of prep to see if I can run a sub 3 hour marathon, which is shaving over 65 minutes off my time last year, which I know sounds crazy. It is crazy. People ask like, oh, what's been your best run to date, or what's been your fastest race that kind of makes you think you can run sub 3? And there's really no evidence, or there's no reason or signs saying that I can run sub 3. My Garmin doesn't even think I can run sub 3, but I'm going to try and run sub 3 regardless, because it's a bit of a gold standard in the marathon space or the running space. Can you run a sub 3 hour marathon? And if I'm going to do something, I want to go all in. I don't want to play it safe. I don't want to be, conservative. Maybe it's a bit delusional, maybe it's a bit unrealistic, but I don't like to do things in halves. So since changing to more of a hybrid approach, my life has very much changed for the better, mainly due to decreasing how much stress I was under, putting less pressure on it, doing it more for fun. I'm training in the gym with the goal of just like keeping muscle, being super athletic, and then I'm training my running strictly for performance, and following a tailored program with a very clear pass or fail goal in mind of, can I run sub 3? So I still very much have that competitive fire and that direction and purpose, but it's been much less pressure than what it was previously. And that's the nature of the training. I've gone from like lots of volume, but it's all very high intensity. Lots of variety, gymnastics, weightlifting, strength, endurance, lots of variety, lots of intensity. And I've gone to more of it's been simple. Running is like the most simple form of exercise you can do. And a lot of those runs have been long, slow, easy runs, building a foundation, working on my aerobic base. And that change of pace has just given me a different stimulus, but also a different perspective of like, I've had so much more time in my own thoughts, thinking, either listening to podcasts, running with absolutely no music, sometimes running with music, and actually having deeper thoughts and gaining more clarity over little things, whether it be business, personal life, whatever, but I've had deeper thinking than I've had before. In the past, doing CrossFit, due to the intensity, I had to be completely focused. It was always like using resilience and willpower to like push hard in this workout, no matter what it was, where there's times where I'm actually have to pull myself back in running and make sure my heart rate's within a certain zone. And those runs are where I'm having some of the craziest thoughts, the craziest ideas, getting the most creative. Often I'll like say, hey Siri, message Madison Hare, and send a bunch of messages to her about things I'm thinking of. And it's been great. And since that point in time, I've just shifted some things. I am still prioritizing my training, but I've also prioritized my social media, which has grown. I've prioritized our business, which we've added arms to it. We've added a podcast since then, a YouTube since then, a media agency since then. And this has just been in the last like 12 months, maybe not even. So yeah, changing to the running/hybrid space has been a huge change. Crazy how much can change in 12 months, and it's definitely been for the better. So the prep started really well. I was healthy, I was committed, I'm always motivated, but I'm always disciplined as well. So there was a period there where I hadn't missed a session, and I was determined to go through this whole prep without missing a single session. And then about halfway along, I sustained an injury. I foolishly went from a Bayfield class doing a leg session, and then went and played my first game of basketball. And basketball is my background. It was social, but I played one game of basketball, and I'd gone from like fatiguing my legs and using my abs to then changing direction and sprinting up and down the court, which I haven't done in 4 years. And I strained my adductor pretty bad doing that, and then that developed a condition called osteolysis pubis, which is where your pubic bone, or all the muscles that attach to your pubic bone, which is mainly your adductor, and then your abs, are like pulling against it and straining the lining around that pubic bone. And it doesn't sound too intense as opposed to like a tear, but I can tell you it's been one of the most horrific injuries I've had, something that like stops me from sleeping. I can't like sit up, I can't really like, there's just like a lot, I can't change any direction. It's just, there's lots of things that it's affected, and it's one of the hardest injuries to kind of go away without just complete rest, which sounds like a lot of injuries, complete rest is never the answer, but this one has been one where it's like, it's really hard to settle down. So I had to get a few cortisone injections throughout those 16 weeks. One of them was like pretty intense, where I actually was not allowed to train for a full 7 days after the injection, and that was like a real spanner in the works. And that's where that was hard. It was hard I almost felt like I was starting again. It was only 7 days, but then when I came back, my physio or my chiro, Nick, said I was only allowed to run X amount of kilometers in the week, and I was only allowed to run at said pace. And I couldn't do what was on the program. And that was driving me insane mentally, physically. I was feel like I wasn't really going forward. I was just doing what I can to maintain, but I felt like I was going backwards. So that was the first real hiccup, and it's still an issue. It's not like I'm over it now, but I'm just managing it as best I can. We got to go to the States and compete in Hyrox Worlds, which was amazing as well. But with that travel, with the jet lag, the time, and then the commitments we had whilst we were over there, it just meant that sometimes I would either have to shorten sessions, and often I would try and just shorten a 3K warm up to a 2K warm up, and a 3K cool down to a 2K. Try not to shorten too much, but we had America, we had the Torium Pro where I was at. There just was a lot of things where I couldn't complete the full program, but that's fine. It's not an excuse, it's not me complaining, because I'm sure there's so many other people who have going on as well, and it's never going to be perfect, but that's just some of the obstacles or hiccups that have kind of got in the way of this prep. But I feel like I've managed it as best I can. I've controlled as many controllables as I can, and from this point, I had the chat with myself a few days ago, from this point onwards, there's no second guessing, there's no doubting, there's definitely no giving excuses, because as soon as I tell myself, oh, I can't do this because of that, then I'm defeated, I've lost. But I'm committed to the process. I truly believe in my brain that I can run sub 3 hour marathon. Whether it is this race or it's going to be a race in the future, I'm going to do it regardless, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make this kind of first attempt the only attempt I need. So this video will be going live on Thursday night. That gives me like 3 days until the race. We'll be in the Gold Coast. We'll have our shakeout run on the Friday. Maddie's running her half marathon on the Saturday. My mum's running the 10K on the Saturday as well. And then me and all the boys will run the full marathon on the Sunday. And so we'll have plenty of content coming out from the race weekend, the lead up, the race itself, and then debrief afterwards as well. And I'm very excited. It's going to be fun. I said to my story yesterday that the hard part is the prep, the 16 to 18 weeks of like showing up consistently, putting in the work. And then the race itself is more of a celebration and a chance to show off the work you've put in, because you can't fake a marathon. Like you either put in the work or you don't. And although I haven't put in all of the work, I've probably put in like, 90% of it, and I've done everything that I can, and that's all I can do. And so I want to show that off. I want to show that I'm way fitter than I was when I ran a 4-hour marathon. And whether it's fit enough to run a sub 3, we'll have to wait and see. But I also want to educate, inspire that it's okay to be vocal about your goals and set a very clear target. Although it'd be very clear if I run 3:01 or 3:10 or 3:30 that I failed. But that's okay, because like I don't want to live a life where I'm scared to try at the risk of failure, and that stops so many people from even having a go. And I'm trying to be open about that, to maybe help one person set themselves a lofty goal and set some high expectations for themselves. I do that for me. I'm trying to run this sub 3. Whether it's going to happen or not, we'll wait and see. Maybe you can't rush time, and maybe I need more time on my legs, but maybe I've done just enough, and maybe mentally I'm strong enough and fit enough to get the job done first go. So we will see. Regardless, I'm not going to look at it as a failure if I don't make it. I'm just ready to leave it all out there and push myself, because I know with discomfort, with pain, with anxiety, with distress, like that is where the growth is. And so after this weekend, I will have grown, I will have evolved, and whether I run in the 2s or the 3s, it's just going to be a celebration of the last 16 weeks of work. So if you enjoyed any of this prep, the vlogs, the sub 3 series, I'd appreciate your support. The support's been amazing. The liking, the subscribing, the comments, we really appreciate that. And part of this series is to show that like I've got no running background like at all. I want to try and show that yes, anyone can run. It's the most simple form of exercise, no matter who you are. If you can get the right program and dedicate the right amount of time, anyone can make the progress. I don't think it requires a certain build. Typically runners are like, quite light, skinny, so they can float through. I'm very much don't have a runner's physique, but with the right amount of work and commitment, anyone can improve their running. And hopefully this inspires some people to do a bit of both, to chase athletic goals and sign up for that race, but also you can train in the gym, do what you love, build muscle, be athletic, compete in like the CrossFit hybrid, whatever space as well. But this journey's been fun. It's only the beginning. I seriously, it's my first prep I've really done for a marathon. And so we're only just kind of getting started in the endurance space and seeing what's truly capable.